Hey, Dev, the Ibra Dev, thank you. Good to see you. How are you doing? I think it's been a while since I've seen you, bud. Just getting some things set up. Bit eepy? What's bit eepy mean? Shreyas, how's it going? Good to see you, Shreyas. Oh, you're going to. Oh, eepy is eepy, like sleepy? Am I too old to understand these things? I think that's what's going on. Shreyas is awesome. I'm glad you're doing awesome, man. That's great. I'm good. I'm much better. I was sick for a while, which sucked. But I'm good now. Tack Cotton 360. Yeah, Shreyas, it sucked. I'm still congested up here. I've got like phlegm and stuff, but I'm alright. Peg, good to see you, man. How you doing, Peg? I'm getting a bunch of stuff set up. I've got I've got at least one exciting thing today. At least one. Okay, let me switch over. Go. Tack, is there anything worth going for study overseas? Tack, I have no idea, man. I have no clue. I am the wrong person to ask. Got no clue, bud. Doing great offline for a week, Peg. Yeah. It's good to take some time off, man. If you mean that you've been offline for a week, that's good. I'm glad. I hope you're doing better. Or I hope it's not you're doing better. I hope it was a good week. Let's put it that way. Tris, what is it? I'm talking to someone named Steve about some WebAssembly stuff. he either works at or runs a company, and they're doing some pretty crazy WebAssembly stuff. And obviously, he caught wind of me because I'm known as the king of WebAssembly. Word around town is that I'm the king of WebAssembly, which is accurate and true. It's just objectively true. So he wanted to talk to me about what he's got going on, and he's got some exciting stuff. So yeah. Peg, yeah, I mean, having some time with the fam in the mountains. Oh, nice. Peg, that's awesome. That sounds awesome, man. I'm jealous. Family time up in the mountains, dude. Isn't that how like some horror stories begin? Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you made it back safe. It's good to see you, man. I'm glad it worked out. Shreyas thinks I'm an influencer now. Shreyas, sometimes I just have to lean into it. Usually I try and stay humble and true to myself. And I don't think of myself as an influencer, but Shreyas, I think you're right. I am an influencer. And I'm one of the best ones there is. Okay? And I'm the most humble about it. If there's anybody who's maximally humble about their influence abilities, it's me. Okay? I've been told I'm the most humble. Okay? I'm the best at being humble. Alright? Kaz, hey Spiro, what's up? Did you get any better health-wise? Kaz, first of all, it's good to see you. Let me know how you're doing. And yeah, I'm back to normal. The only thing that I've got left is just some fluid congestion stuff up in my face. So I clear my throat a lot. My nose is a bit congested, but that's it. Everything else is I'm good to go, man. So yeah, good to see you, Kaz. Yeah, Tack. Surely humble. Capical. Shreyas, you doubt that last part? Listen, Shreyas. You said I'm an influencer. Shreyas, it's your fault that I have such a big ego, because you keep saying things like that about me. You and Prime would get along? Maybe. Maybe. Can you influence your influence capabilities somehow? I could, Peg. I could inception my own influence abilities. The problem is that if I do that, then it's like a multiplying effect, and then I just become more of an influencer. And you know, at some point, I have to leave room for other people to influence. You know, I can't just take up the whole space. You know. So, the most humble here, folks. The most humble. You're building a Tailwind LSP in C. Sid, hello. Good to see you, Sid. I think it's been a while, Sid. I hope you're doing well, man. Shreyas, I don't know why you're building a Tailwind LSP in C. You're crazy. But that's also kind of cool. I hope it's going well. Peg, that means you can control your powers. Maybe you're a superhero. Peg, I am a superhero. You didn't know that? Have you not seen me code? Have you not seen the game I've built? I built on my own with zero help. Just me. Just me. Kaz, from my side, hacking on work code base. That thing is bad. Oof. Also wandering around Twitch and found interesting later on. Not as humble as you, but definitely interesting. Okay. Kaz, you should drop it in Discord. I'll check this lady out. In a non-creepy way. Last time I was here, you were sick and couldn't talk. Yeah, I said that's right. That was a while ago. That was like 2 weeks ago, maybe more. But I'm glad to see you back, Sid. Thanks for being here, man. You hate the official JS one? It's slow, so I'm rebuilding it in C. Shreyas? All power to you, man. That's great. Because I agree. The direction Tailwind's gone into, I don't really like it. And part of it is because they've complicated the process and it's stupid slow. So if you can do it better and faster, man, that's awesome. Where's the game? The game is somewhere. Somewhere. Let me see. Tailwind v4 is simpler, but LSP is still in JS. How is Tailwind v4 simpler? I'm not keeping up with it, so they redid a lot of it in Rust. Okay, well, I'm never touching Tailwind ever again. Kaz, I will provide some background info before dropping her name on Twitch to avoid any prejudgmental thinking. Okay, Kaz, just do it in Discord. Do it on my Discord, or you can just DM me, just to be safe. What happened to Tailwind CSS? Well, they started using Rust, so I'm never touching it ever again. I hate touching stuff with Rust. I just hate it. Hate it. Never. So Tailwind is dead to me. Kaz, they'll DM me? Cool. Perfect. I was about to ask if someone rewrote it in Rust. Yeah. Then I should touch Bun more. I've looked at Bun quite seriously. I have. Okay, only half of it is Rust. Rust is still JS. That's fair, Shreyas, that's fair. And I'm being hyperbolic for the lols. It's not that I'll never touch Rust, is that I tend to think twice. Let's put it that way. Real talk, if Rust is like added to a project or used, I think twice about it. Doesn't mean I stay away from it completely, but you know, again, having said that, again, Shreyas, I think what you're doing is awesome, because if you can take a portion, like a slow aspect of their entire process and make it faster with C. I know listen, Shreyas, okay? It's to be clear for the people who don't know me, right? Because I come across serious sometimes, and people take me seriously when I don't mean to. So I'm trying to be clear. All right? For everyone else, Shreyas, including you, okay? Today someone said it smells like crap. Yeah. Look, I don't hate Rust, but I think I've talked about this before in a previous stream. I don't like a lot of the decisions they've made, and it gives me concern because I've been around the block long enough where I've seen the same patterns happen on other frameworks, and I've been part of two companies, one completely shut down and one had to lay off a bunch of their workers because they took a big hit when the decision makers in a framework decided to make a series of stupid decisions, and the companies were anchored to that framework, and it caused people to lose their jobs. An entire company went away. So when I see the stuff that's going on with Rust and the type of community and people and decisions around it, I tend to just think twice. So I don't hate it, but I'm concerned. So I tend to stay away from it if I can. Use Crablang, not Rust. Exactly. Crablang is a new thing. Hey, Lord. Good to see you, Lord. Hi. How you doing? But nothing happened to Rust? I mean, nothing's actually happened to Rust, but decisions have been made around Rust, and communities have been built around Rust. And it's these decision makers and communities that tend to kind of like guide where the language is going. And I'm worried. I'm concerned. I would be concerned anchoring myself to Rust. I've been there. I've done that with other languages. Well, actually with other frameworks, not languages, with two other frameworks. Yeah, it's a personal experience thing. I just see red flags. LOL, hey, how you doing? Tech Lead D's nuts. Family friendly stream. LOL, good to see you, man. How are you doing, bud? Thanks for being here. I'm just gonna... So, in about like 40 minutes, I'm gonna have Steve on. We're gonna talk about some cool WebAssembly stuff. I'm not really doing anything in particular. I've got some notes about some stuff I want to do today. Primarily talk about that cool WebAssembly stuff, so yeah. So I'm just getting the crowd warmed up for that. TLDR, leaving Rust or something? No, I didn't even join Rust. I can't leave something I didn't join. See you in 40 minutes? Sounds good, Shreyas. It sounds good, bud. Good to see you again, Shreyas. I miss you, man. I miss all of you crazy folks. 200 IQ move. Thanks, Cass. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I need to do, and I decided yesterday that I was going to stop doing. I decided before that because of recent tech streaming drama. I'm not going to do React content anymore. I'm not going to pull up articles and videos and react to it. Instead, what I'll do is I'll pick problems and I'll tackle the problem, and then I'll stream myself tackling the problem with chat, and then we'll finish the problem, and then that'll become my recording. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm just kind of like doing a layout for the day, what things I might want to do, including the interview later. You can stream your job. Yes, yeah, I asked for permission. I talked about it with my contract job, and they said, yep, all good, except for like important areas, things that are like proprietary or whatever. But for the most part, I can stream what I'm doing with the Laravel HTMX stuff on the contract job. which is great because that's a real life job with thousands, tens of thousands of users. And I've streamed it before, and there's a lot to learn there. There's a lot of work to do there too. It's quite a messy code base. So yeah, I stopped putting time into it because I was afraid leadership was going to sink that ship. LOL, that's exactly my concern. I'm worried that it's going to sink. Shreyas, wait, why? Yeah, I won't specifically go into specifics, but there was some drama around tech streamers and who do tech stuff, and they do React content where they pull up articles or videos from other people, and then they add their own like commentary on top of it. And just generally, I don't. Here's the bottom line for me. I don't think it does the original stuff justice, and I think it's kind of like, well, F it. I'm just gonna be honest. I think it's low tier. It's low. It's like a lazy way to create content because you're just taking content that someone else has done. Now, that's not always the case. You can have a really good take on something and add really good nuance and context. So this is a broad statement, not a like every scenario is like this, but just broadly speaking, unless you really do have a good reason to do it, most of the time you're just kind of like repeating what's already being said, or in some cases it could lead down a path where you're just like trash talking someone else's work. And again, there are times when that's like, you should do that and people deserve it, but I think more often than not, it's just unnecessary and doesn't do the original stuff justice. And it's not really me anyways. So then to bring it back to me, it's not really what I think. It's not really my kind of thing. My kind of thing is more of like educational. Like, I want to learn stuff, and I want everyone else who's watching to learn stuff with me, or I learn stuff from them, or they learn stuff from me, whatever it is, right? So I don't know that React content is really a good way to do that. It's more like I just want to build stuff where people can like watch real problems be solved, watch real things taking place, like with the video game, for example. There's lots of stuff that's like, we're really using this, it's on production, so to speak. There's lots of problems that are really cool to tackle. I'm learning stuff, everyone else is learning stuff, so I'll make content around that, educational videos around that, instead of pulling up someone else's work and trying to do content around that. Yeah, hopefully that explains something, Shreyas. Prime time Ajin is not bad. Is that like a channel? Only if you add value on top of that content. Criticizing is really bad. Yeah, Pag. Yeah. I watched a video, didn't even finish it. LOL, what are you talking about, LOL? Watched a video, didn't even finish it. I hate when streamers like Prime comment BS on other people's take on any topic like they're an authority figure which can decide. Prime Timeagen. Shreyas, is like Primeagen channel, it's a different channel, but for like React content, is that right? Yeah, and Peg, that's the other thing is hey Van Cleaver, good to see you, man. How you doing, Van Cleaver? Okay, on YouTube, got it. The drama isn't Prime, or am I missing something? I won't say names. If you want to, you can find it. If you want me to send you links, Discord me. But I won't do it publicly because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't want to add to the whole thing. I don't need to add to the whole thing. Sure, I'll send links. If you want links, I'll send Shreyas, I'll Discord you links. Thanks, Kaz. Yeah, I see your DMs. I'll check them out as soon as I can. And Peg, yes, I think you're right. I do agree with you that... Okay, F it. I'm going to be honest again, too. There's a certain point where you get enough viewers, you make enough money from what you're doing, you're able to say, I don't know, do it all the time, because you have hundreds, maybe thousands of viewers, And if you're not careful with yourself, it goes to your head. And then what you do is you start thinking, well, all these people are watching me, therefore I must be an authority figure, right? That's why I don't like it internally, personally, not from you guys, but from me. When Shreyas comes on and he's like, hey, you're an influencer, right? You know, some of it's lighthearted, right? But I try to take it extremely not seriously, because the last thing I want to do is let that get to my head and then start thinking that like I have some kind of one up on everybody else. No, I'm just like everyone else. I make mistakes all the damn time. I've done it on stream. I'm not an authority figure, nor should I be. Nobody should consider me an authority figure. All I want to do is learn for myself. And if you guys want to join in on learning, teaching me or learning with me, you know, that's where I want to be, right? And so when you do React content, if you let it get to your head and you go, well, you know, since I have so many people watching me, I have an opinion and my opinion matters here. It's like, well, just because you have hundreds or thousands of viewers does not actually mean that you are an authority figure. It just means that you have hundreds of thousands of viewers. The two are not exactly the same. So, you know, that I'm trying really, really careful to not be kind of like a bad version of myself. And because I've been in a cult, I know how easy it is for people to go down that road. Yeah, everything you say is a joke. Yeah. You are the best, Shreyas. You are indeed the best. Shreyas, exactly. Exactly. It should make you more responsible. You should be way more careful. AH. Hey man, how are you doing, AH? Good to see you. Which route? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Pag. Problem is lots of people believe in these digital gods. Yes. Yes. They become this. Okay, here's the other problem. Screw it all. Okay? Screw it all. I don't care the blowback. What I notice is that people who are at the top of their game in streaming, and this applies in many other aspects in life. You're going to find this, if you pay attention, you will find this to be true way more than you thought when you weren't paying attention. Check it. What people like to do is deal with their own cognitive dissonance. So people who tend to abuse their positions of power need to find a way to excuse the fact that there's some voice in the back of their head that's saying this isn't right and you shouldn't be doing this. So what they do, that's called cognitive dissonance. So when you're confronted with something, whether it's a voice in the back of your head, evidence, whatever it is, that contradicts your current worldview, and you're trying to like ignore it, that's cognitive dissonance, where you're not in tune with the objective reality around you or what you know to be true, right? So you're trying to push past that. What will happen is they will find ways to excuse themselves from having to tackle that problem. So what they'll do is interact with the world around them in a way that gives them plausible deniability, so to speak. So they'll find ways to be like, well, you know, fine, I have hundreds, if not thousands of viewers or more. But what am I supposed to do? You know, like I can only do what I do. I can't keep track of everybody and what they say and all of that. So I wash my hands of the responsibility of being, you know, of what I say, because anything I say, there's going to be somebody who takes it wrong. Essentially what you're trying to do is excuse yourself from having to be more responsible over the fact that you have a large viewership, or more responsible over the fact that you have more responsibility in like a job or whatever it is that you're doing. I've seen this happen time and time again. It happens all the damn time, and I try very hard to avoid doing that myself. So if I was to suddenly receive an influx of like 10,000 viewers tomorrow, what that means is I don't get to wash my hands of the responsibility, because it's like, oh man, there's so many. How can you possibly expect me to, you know, be responsible for what I say to all 10,000 of them? No, it's like, no, I knew going in that this could be a possibility, which means I've accepted the fact that I might be responsible for that, and I better step up to the plate. And if I can't, then I should walk away. Because the last thing I want to be doing is convincing myself that it's okay for me to be less responsible, or to find escape reasons for not being more responsible about the responsibility in front of me, and then ruining, telling people, poor information, or letting it get to my head, or some combination of bad things. The more attention that you're getting that way, the more possibilities you have to do bad things, poor things, let's say. Yeah, it means I got raided by pirate. Yeah. Hey, Vincent, good to see you, man. How are you doing, Vincent? Okay, let me just make sure. Okay, I just had to send a message out here. Okay, so Vincent says he decided against a PhD. 4 years is just too long. Vincent, I remember you were asking about that. So does that mean you're going to try and jump into, just take what you have and try and land a job? Pag says, I don't think that's a streamer's problem. It's a problem with that specific audience. As a streamer, you can do whatever you want, as everyone does. It's your opinion, but I guess when you have lots of viewers, maybe you have some, I guess you cannot say whatever comes to your mind. Peg, yes. And so listen, Peg, I think it is a streamer's problem to some degree. The streamer does not escape culpability. What a streamer can do is work really hard to attract the right kind of audience. And you don't have to engage with everyone. And the way that you engage with friends, when do you have 10,000 friends, right? Typically you don't. Typically you have, 5 to 10 friends when you go and hang out with people, right? And those would be the friends that you would consider the closest. That's very different than being on stream recorded with 10,000 people, most of whom you don't know. And the more people you have, the more responsible you are for what you're who you're attracting and how you're interacting with them, right? And you have to treat it properly. There's definitely a responsibility there. And it's really easy to find reasons why you don't have to be responsible for it. You already have a couple of jobs lined up? Vincent, that's awesome. Are they like low level, like, I know you were doing something low level, right, Vincent? I attract the right audience. Apparently you suck at it because I'm here. Age, it's true. It's true. Look at my audience. And yet I would argue this is the best audience ever. If you take Pirate and Prime, they're two different animals. Are they? Are they two different animals? I want you to think about that. What makes them different? Or let me put it this way. Do they have more similarities than they do differences? You think they're more different than they are similar, Peg? Okay, look, I'm not going to get into it. I won't get into it. It's fine. Like, they do have, don't get me wrong, yeah, they do have their own uniqueness, right? They do have their own uniqueness. Both of them do. But in my personal opinion, they are more alike than they are different. their uniques are on the extreme edges of anything that you would, like if you were to chart it, their differences would be on the extremes. They overlap a lot with similarities. That's my personal opinion. That's all. And I don't need to, go into specifics or anything, but that's the way I view it. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Right. But and that's not a judgmental statement. It's just a statement of how I see it, right? And I think they deal with their audiences differently. I would absolutely agree with that. And they both have a way of dealing with their audiences that's, you can find a positive and a negative in everything, right? Including me. You can point all kinds of problems. I know I have problems with the way that I deal with everything. That's not really my point, though. It's not really a specific person or individual. You could apply it to a specific person or individual, but I'm talking about, like, just generally speaking, it's easy to make excuses for not dealing with that kind of responsibility properly. And I find that few people in that position, whether it's streaming or whatever else, know how to deal with that. Vincent says, I don't really like their content. I feel it's a very clickbait content. I mean, to some degree it is. And Vincent, I'll tell you something. Look, I don't think Thor's close to a monk. No, I don't agree with that necessarily, Shreyas, but that's funny. They have to generate clickbait content. How do you think they got where they are? If I generated clickbait content, the mindset, okay, Shreyas, that's fair, Shreyas. I could see that, Shreyas. If I generated clickbait content, I would pull in a lot more viewers, which would lead to a lot more subscriptions, which would lead to a lot more income. Right? So, because clickbait works. And they didn't get where they are by only doing stuff that is true to the core of who they are. To some degree, they all have to play the game, right? In order to get what they need, in order for them to get the support they need to continue doing what they do, right? So it's almost like you have to play the game in order to do the aspects of the game that you love to play. So I can understand why they do clickbait content, but I do agree that they do a lot of clickbait content. And I don't like it, right? But I understand the necessity of it. I would just rather not do it personally. I feel like we can do better. I'm curious what will become of Prime as a full-time streamer. I enjoyed his old stuff. Both are more in the entertainment and subprime Theo for the clickbaity stuff. Age, I get it. I do get it. Clickbait overrides my decision making. I don't like it, so I remove it from my life. Right. I don't mind clickbait content. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But they were already an extremely well-paying job, so why do Twitch? And Prime is also a dad, so you wouldn't get his value from that. Right. Soding, yeah. There's a lot there, guys. I'll try and get to all of you. Okay, I love the way Soding does his stuff. He kind of just tries to do his own thing and ignore everything else. I think that's a great way to do it. He does still do some clickbait stuff. He does the trash talk or whatever. There's a nuance to that where I think it's like, if you do the clickbaity stuff well, maybe with a hint of like crap posting with clickbait, it's not so bad. I don't know. There's definitely an art to it to make it feel okay. In the content creation economy, you do have to play a game, and I don't like the game, right? And you have to be. I think the reason why I don't like the game is because I know how easy it is once you play that game, how easy it is to open the door to making excuses for playing other games that come with that. Other games that I really don't want to be participating in. such as making excuses for my own responsibilities, right? So if I'm going to stay true to what I'm doing, then I'm going to do it from day one. And then I just really, really limit the risk of myself doing something stupid. I still will, I promise you. If I haven't already, I know I have. I will do something stupid. But I know myself, and I know that, and I've seen it in other people and how easy it is to do it. And so for me, I'm just going to try and avoid it straight out the get-go. And they did have extremely, Vincent, yeah, they did have extremely well-paying jobs. I mean, Prime was in Netflix for like 10 years, and some of them come from money. Like their families had money and they come from money. And that colors your perspective on the world too. When you come from money, if you're not careful, you can think of things that earn you money as the only measurement of success. Right? And how do you get money in streaming? Viewers and subs, right? And so then you do whatever you have to do because that's your measurement of success, because that's where you came from. Yeah, Kaz. It's the clickbaity stuff is very much meant to be like stuff firing, you know, it's the ADD thing, right? Yeah, you might not like it, but that's how you get views. I get it. I get it. There's a bunch of people selling themselves on Twitter, LinkedIn with crappy content. Yeah, tack. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I want to be clear that I am not calling out anyone specifically, even though I'm at risk of contextually being, you know, targeted that way. But that's fine. There's definitely some positive things to a lot of people, but it's the game. It's the game, and I just don't want to play the game. And I unfortunately see people play the game and then get negatively affected by the game way too easy. You know, way too easy. And that's where some of the tech drama came from. Yeah. Clickbait is okay if you actually have something on the hook. Prime isn't selling anything. Prime is not selling anything specifically. There are other things he does. Yeah. Yeah, Panda. Yeah, I called you out, Panda. How does it feel? Tell me how it feels. I hope you're shedding tears, Panda. Bottle those tears up for me. What other things is he doing? I didn't get it. It's okay. It's okay, Shreyas. Don't worry about it. Selling keyboards. I mean, he does sell keyboards, yeah. Yeah. It's okay. You know, I'll say some good stuff. Yeah, Prime, based on what he said at least, Prime had a hard, like he had a lot of challenges in his life. He overcame them, and he tends to give pretty good life advice because he's learned some stuff the hard way. So like in general life advice, I find Prime to be like a pretty positive influence. And that's an example of like, you know, being responsible for the kind of viewership and I guess the kind of viewership that you have, and just kind of trying really hard to make sure that you positively influence other people's lives. You know, that is a positive thing. And Thor does it too. He gives lots of positive life advice, which I find to be great. You know, it's not all negative. But it's easy. It's too easy to mix the two together. If you look at things in isolation, you can find positives and negatives. And I don't want to be the guy that like. And I've seen this in cults too, where it's like you get one thing right, and so everything else you say is right too. But look at how right I was about this or that. That means that everything else I say about any other topic is also correct. You know, I don't want to do that. I see that happen too often. You can have your opinions and share them publicly. Nothing wrong with his takes. If only he didn't comment on tech. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Hey, first of all, Chaz, welcome back. I am back too. It's good to see you. How are you doing? Yes, you can have a difference of opinion. It did, Chaz. It kicked my butt. There's so much waste of time watching his content. Let's call it time value. I could understand that, AH. I could understand that. Yes, Vincent, starting your own cult is one of the most profitable things you can do. Absolutely. It's an easy button to life. Really, it is. People are all too willing. Time value is a skill issue. Oh, Chaz throwing bullets out. Chaz. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. I think the question is, how well do you describe the fact that you're having a difference of opinion? So if you have a difference of opinion with someone who comes on to, let's say, your chat or wherever, one of your viewers comes on and has a difference of opinion with you, and 1 out of 1,000 has that difference with you, and so 999 other people are watching you, and those 999 other people take your opinion as the opinion they should have, and you do not clearly indicate that your opinion is a difference of opinion from that one viewer. If you don't clear that up, then what happens is 999 other people take your opinion as factual. That's where responsibility comes in as a streamer. You have to be really clear and make sure that people... It's not entirely on them, Chaz. See, that's an easy way out. I've seen that excuse way too often. Well, I don't have to worry about it because that's their problem, not my problem. No, it's also your problem because you're the one up on the stage. You made that choice, and you're the one who's supposed to set an example in some kind of like, leadership role. If you cannot clearly communicate what you're describing, then you also take responsibility. Yes, some of it is on them, Chaz. I do agree. Other people do have to, put their brains on, so to speak. I get it. But you don't get to walk away from it scot-free either. You also have a responsibility, and you have to do your part. And if you just go, well, it's their problem, not mine. I can say whatever I want because I'm allowed to say whatever I want. It's like, okay, well then, I have no faith in you. Chaz, do you understand that you are not everyone else? You get that, right? I agree with what you're saying. That's how I wish majority of people thought like you did, but they don't. They don't. And if you're aware of that fact, it's actually not that difficult to take, as a streamer, to take that fact, or as anybody in leadership position, to take the fact that not everyone thinks that way. Maybe even a majority of people don't think the way you do, Chaz. And you have to set a better example, and you have to be clear in your communication to counteract that. Hi, Rui. Good to see you. How you doing? Ego issues, not skill issues. Do you think Chaz has an ego? Because Chaz does have a good point. That's the way that, what he's describing should be the de facto standard way people should think. I don't think Chaz has an ego. And I don't think Chaz has a skill issue. But I do think that if you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to say like, hey, I want the viewers like I have, then you have to be willing to be responsible for that. Oh, okay, not referring to Chaz. All right. Okay, Pag, good. Yeah, bending one's worldview to make it fit. Somewhat. Yeah. Okay, so Vincent. Vincent says, sorry, I don't see how you know most people will take your opinion as fact. I think most people do think on their own, at least from my experience of the people around me. Fair. What I want you to do is, you don't have to take my word for it. And again, I would be happy if it's just my cynical, ripe old age of 40 experience. That would be fantastic. But go jump on someone's stream. Doesn't matter who. Does not matter who. They have to have at least 2,000 viewers or more on any platform. Twitch, YouTube, pick your platform. And watch the chat and how they interact with the streamer. And given enough time, how many people take that streamer as stating facts because that's how they perceive it. In my experience, more people take things like that as facts than not. More people think, well, this person said it and so it must be true. And they hold that standard to like the top, of the pyramid, if you will, than not. Not enough people think the way Chaz thinks, for example. Right? And I think that if you're in that position where you're saying things and it's really not hard to tell that is true, that a lot of people view you that way. It doesn't actually take a heck of a lot of effort for you to counteract that in a positive way. My issue is that I don't see a lot of people in that position trying to counteract that. That's what I'm trying to say. I wish more people did. And I think everybody, myself included, whether it's Prime, whether it's Thor, whether it's, I don't know, Sushi Dragon, it doesn't matter who. I think everybody with a little bit of effort can do more about that from their side of things. Can't take you seriously. Bowser is bad. Okay, Tack, I'll change it up. It's very chat is a subjection of the viewers that might be an extreme. So they might not have a serious counter in a very fast moving chat, so waste of time. Vincent, I don't think fast moving chat has anything to do with what you're saying. Unless you're just like immediate reacting. If you're just immediately reacting, okay, yeah, then a fast moving chat, you're not dealing with that properly, I would argue. But I think what you're saying can be independent of whether the chat is moving fast or not. It's when words are coming out of your mouth as a streamer, you've chosen to pick some message, right? Yeah. Well, then there's no point in typing out a lengthy opinion. Okay, but sure, Vincent, but I'm not talking about the opinion of chatters. I'm talking about the opinions of the streamers, right? And even if the streamer decides to single out a chat message that's very short, you can rectify a very short opinion easily. Hey, can you explain that more? Done. Yeah, Johnny, exactly. It's the same sort of behavior. I was in a cult for 30 years. It's exactly the same behavior, Johnny. Exactly the same. Too many people jump on bandwagons without much thought. Exactly, Chaz. I see it everywhere all the time. I'll put on the ghost hat. Everyone has their own influencers. True. Tack, yeah. if you go against the opinion of the streamer, you'd have to counteract it with your own opinion. You can do that. And then in that case, the chatter is learning something, right? If Vincent, if you have an opinion and you're like, hey, I don't agree with you. And then I say, okay, explain it. And then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't actually think the streamer was going to call me out. I don't know how to explain my opinion. You've just learned that you need to think about explaining your opinion. That doesn't mean that your opinion is actually wrong or right. It just means that you actually got called out and you need to find a way to explain it. And if you have somebody else who's willing to participate or engage in that back and forth with you, which I try very hard to do, then it's okay. Vincent, make as lengthy of an opinion as you want. I encourage that. I want that because I also learn when, like, I want to learn from you guys. Right? And there's a difference there in how you handle that. Critical thinking is hard, requires experience. It's, for some people, that's certainly true, Peg. You got godded, Shreyas? What do you mean? Yes, man's without much effort in thinking. Yeah. Just put opinionated in the stream titles, yeah, Jazz. Only if the stream... Exactly, Vincent. Only if the streamer promotes it. And so here's my point. How many streamers do you know that promote that kind of discussion back and forth? That's my point. I'm going to switch hats. Oh, this coming from the guy saying modern programmers are lazy. Listen, Chaz, all right? I'm not perfect. Okay? I'm not perfect. And you got me, Chaz. You got me. Shreyas is 4? Shreyas, you know 4 streamers who encourage that kind of back and forth? Who are they, Shreyas? If you don't mind. If you don't want to say on Twitch chat, that's fine. You can DM me. I'm curious. Ah, AH. Nice. You like Odin? Did you post your sharing an opinion when rap posting? That takes the fun of it. I mean, yeah, it does. You're right, Chaz. But I think the medium takes into account for that. So if you're going to do that, you're probably doing it on Twitter or X. And it's kind of like assumed. You know, X is the place to go to do that. Kind of, a little bit. It's not really a good rebuttal, but like you have a valid point, Chaz. Sabine, Leo, you, bad cop. Interesting. Okay. Huh. Ben Holmes is super interactive, talking about stuff even if it challenges him. That okay. I'll have to check out Ben Holmes. Yeah. So I guess Shreyas, can you? Okay, out of curiosity, how many viewers does Ben Holmes have? Because if you look at myself, Sabine, and Leo, and look at our viewer counts, obviously it's not in the same place as like a Pirate Software or even a Prime, right? Yeah? Okay. So 60-ish, 20-ish. Okay, so like let's say less than 100. So these are all people who are less than 100, right? So, okay, so then, Shreyas, I would ask you, how many people do you know that have over 500 viewers that encourage the kind of discussion that we're talking about right now, where it's a more responsible back and forth, at least on the streamer side, if not both sides? To get Prime's attention to have discussion is to have totally opposite and lame effort, and he catches that. Yeah, Kaz, you have to trigger Prime. You do. You have to trigger Prime. Soding? Maybe. He ignores a lot because he just does his own thing. He just does his own thing. So he just kind of treats chat as almost as if they aren't there. Yeah, he's high on the focus part, exactly. Which isn't a bad thing. That's also a good way to counteract. Like if you don't engage and you're just focused on doing the work, you really lower your risk of saying something stupid or treating your chat poorly or not being like Prime kind of does. Shreyas, I don't remember the last time Prime had an in-depth back and forth with one of his chat members. It might just be like bad memory, honestly, but most streamers are just caricatures. The Go VPN guy. Jeez. Well, who are we talking about now? I don't know, Shreyas. His chat members either have poor shots fired mentality. Oh, keybind, okay. He's incredibly explorative. Yeah, okay, there you go. Or just yes mans. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think yes, there's a certain point where after a certain number of viewers, you get a vast majority of them being, we're just going to accept everything you say because like you're our authority figure. And if a streamer is not aware of it, or if they are aware of it and they come up with a way to not have to deal with it, that does not serve the viewers well. And then all it becomes is self-serving, honestly. I'm trying really hard to avoid that. I don't want this to be about me. I want it to be about us. The most fun I've had building this single player, it started out as like, okay, I'm not going to get any viewers. I'm going to build up my game, and it'll just be a thing I do for myself to build out a game, even if I have like 5 viewers in a year. Well, I've exceeded that thanks to you guys, because you guys are all awesome. But the most fun I've had doing this has been when it's us building the game together and playing it and finding bugs and tackling problems, and then you guys make fun of me for doing like 600 if else statements and stuff like that. Like, that I think is where the true gold is. There's things crapping on JS and wearing Nintendo hats. That's my thing. That's my unique thing. Hey, Bowen, good to see you. I hope you're doing well, Bo. Let me know how you're doing. Like, you're my influencer. I ask you stuff all the time. Whatever you say goes. You're my influencer as I choose to, based on your takes and how I trust that when you don't, or you call it out that you just don't know. Okay, so Tak, I don't want to be your influencer. What I want to do is ask questions that help you to ask questions. And I know I can't avoid it. I know I can't. Like, somebody's going to, but I take that very seriously. Like, I take it it's a huge responsibility. And maybe a part of me denying that I'm an influencer is because I don't want that responsibility. And so I'm trying to also come up with a way to like not have that responsibility. But I know I have it. Just like, even just a little bit, even if it's just one person. That's a huge responsibility. Like, I have a kid. I influence my kid all the time. That's a huge freaking responsibility to be an influence on your kid, let alone a grown human being who I don't know. So like my goal here is to try and help everybody else benefit from something I'm doing, even if I'm doing something stupid. And the benefit is, look, Spiro did something stupid. I'm not doing that. That's great. I'm here for it. Thanks, Chaz. The more deeply nested the code, the more competent the programmer. Chaz is just dropping fact after fact after fact. Hey, Nil Slice, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you, Nil Slice. Because if I ask you something and you clearly know, I can't compete with you. You get it? I'm way lower on the rank of knowledge compared to you and most of the chat here. I understand, Tak. I think you could probably. I think you should try and make sure, like, confirm, verify. You're smart enough to go and check, right? And I've been checked live before. So tack, don't just take everything and then walk away and do nothing about it. If something is curious to you about something we were saying, go check it out. The only bad thing is when a streamer involves you in debugging an issue which doesn't exist for 6, maybe 7 hours. Yeah, Peg. That's never happened here, right, Peg? Odin makes Sig look bloated. They both some like bloated to the power of 2. Sure, age. Hey, Blue. How you doing, Blue? Let me know how you're doing. All chats are my opinion. Yep. Want to chat on Discord? Yes. Let's do Discord, no slice. Fair attack, yeah. Okay. I will call you on Discord. Steve. One sec. Let me get all set up. Hang on, guys. We're going to have Steve on. We're going to talk about WebAssembly stuff. I have tons of questions, but I got to do the setup here. If I do this. I do use Shyrein's backend on the daily. Just raw dog that backend, yo. All those open sockets. Okay. Won't even do an Elixir stream thanks to him, yeah. I know, I've ruined it all. Okay, if I do this, and then I have to open up Discord somehow. Okay, if I just unlock that. Okay, I'm gonna call you. Let's see how well this works. Okay. Okay, so I can hear you. You can hear me, Steve? Okay. Let me open up. Yeah.
Just let me know.
Yeah. Okay, talk a little bit more. I've got your volume turned on, chat.
Okay. Hello. Testing.
There we go. Chat, you can hear him okay?
What's up, chat?
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'm going to set a marker. I'm going to bring your video. Is it okay if I pop up your video on screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there we are. Sadly, yes. Listen,
I'm gonna, I can't see you or anything else. That's probably by design. So I might just pop back up in the Twitch and put it on silent.
yeah, just put it on silent. I did OBS. I think removed their virtual camera option, so I can't add it. I can't add a virtual camera right now.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to watch it on Twitch, which means I get the view because I'm an egotistical, maniacal viewer sucker.
Aren't we all at some level?
At some level, don't we all want the yeah? Okay, well, welcome.
Oh, cool.
Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Every day I get to talk WASM's a good day. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna set a marker because I want to like make a thing of this. As long as you're cool with that, I want to like make a video out of this. I'm gonna set a marker.
Sounds great.
So let's start with who you are and give us some background on what you're doing and why you came on to talk to me today. And then I have a billion questions with whatever time you have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. My name's Steve Manuel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Dilibso. And we focus on kind of bringing WebAssembly tooling and developer experience and other systems that help teams take WebAssembly to production. We're most well known for a framework, an open source WebAssembly framework called XDism, which is the way I found you. I think somebody had maybe mentioned trying XDism to call WASM from PHP, I think. And I love talking to anybody about WebAssembly or XDism. So I'm more than happy to spend as much time as I can doing that. And let's see, background on me a little bit. Software engineer, have done lots of startups, have done worked for small companies and big companies. Most recently was doing work on the Cloudflare Workers team. And I actually was responsible for bringing the Workers RS project. So if you'd like to write your worker in a different language than JavaScript, you could write it in Rust. And never have to touch any JavaScript again if you don't want to. So that was kind of how my WebAssembly journey started, was wanting to write, things for the web in a JavaScript environment, but not use JavaScript. And so was pretty excited to see the Cloudflare Workers project come to life and actually work, and then become a fairly popular way of writing a worker if you want to just use Rust instead of JavaScript. And then since then, have just done a lot of things focused exclusively on WebAssembly. So I have gone in, down at like the deep end of observability. So if you want to actually get some telemetry code out of your WASM as it executes, we've built a whole observability suite and just a bunch of things around WebAssembly. So I'm always just trying to find anybody who wants to do stuff with WebAssembly and help them accomplish their goals.
Okay. Okay. Should I dig in? I have questions.
Let's do it. Let's hit it.
All right. So, I've been using WebAssembly for in three different ways. So I'll do a quick brief explanation, and then I'm going to ask how I did it, how I approached integrating WebAssembly into these three different ways, and
Okay.
why your approach is A, different, and B, has an advantage perhaps, or has some advantages, let's say.
Sure. Yeah.
So one, PHP. And I literally had to pull in I think it was a library that let me read in the raw WebAssembly files, import like all the definitions of the functions and all of that. And I manually had to build it into vanilla PHP, how to read that file, the binary file, and execute those functions and get the returns out of them, make sure they have the right parameters as you execute functions, etc., etc. So that was one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other way was Elixir. Elixir, fortunately, comes with a nice additional library called, I think it's called WASMX, I think.
Yeah.
And essentially it just lets you just bind a WASM binary file into your Elixir code and just call it like normal. So that was great. That was super easy. It was really fast. And Elixir is honestly a really good language, so I wasn't surprised it was that easy. The third way is probably what you've seen a little bit of, where I'm building the game that I'm building with chat. And I use Zig, compile it to WebAssembly, and then I load it up on the browser. And the reason why I did it that way in particular with Zig is because then I can take the same Zig code and I can target pretty much any other platform I want. Like I have some Raspberry Pis, I have Macs, I've got other embedded hardware that I want to try out with Zig because it's low level. And then I can compile the WebAssembly file and target those things, and then have the same game state manager consistent across whatever I compile to. So if I wanted to not use the browser to render the game, I could switch over to like Vulkan or something and use the same WebAssembly file, but apply a different rendering mechanism. So then across all those three, I'm using the same WebAssembly file. So in PHP, in Elixir, and in the browser, everybody gets the same game state manager, which means that there's consistency, right? Which is one of the benefits of doing WebAssembly when you have a binary file like that, my understanding,
Yep.
is that you get to have a consistent set of inputs and outputs as long as you've built it right. Once you've built it right pretty much everywhere. All right.
Exactly.
So now that I've given you the landscape of what I'm doing, how are you approaching maybe those problems or similar problems, but in your way? What are the advantages there?
Totally. So I just want to quickly kind of add a couple little bit of detail to the three different options that you've talked about,
Okay.
because it's an important context about each of those, about why we built Xtism and why it's actually really helpful across all of those different environments. And you're really actually smart to pick Zig, because Zig is an extremely straightforward language to target WebAssembly, and it follows the spec in all of its operations. So if you're just using, the freestanding WASM32 or WASI, it's going to work reliably across a bunch of different runtimes that provide those, or a bunch of different runtimes that take WebAssembly code and execute it.
Right.
So the first one that you picked, right, was in PHP. And I probably used something like WASMer or WASMtime to get a PHP like FFI wrapped library.
That's it.
And in each of those libraries, they are actually wrapping a full WebAssembly runtime, both of which are written in Rust, and exposing to you into PHP some functions like create an engine or load a store, and then open the WebAssembly file, and then get the functions, find it by name, and then get their parameters. And you have to kind of like type all of these things. So like the parameters should be, one I32 in and like an I32 out. And it's a low level interface, because sometimes you actually want all the flexibility to turn all the knobs and pull all the levers to kind of make the engine do exactly what you want it to do. But in most cases, what we've found is people just want to load the WASM, call one of its functions, pass it some like string data, and get some string like data back. I don't want to mess with how do I do allocations. I don't want to mess with typing all of this kind of fancy argument or return values. I just want to get it to work and run a function and get some data back from that function.
Right.
And so what the PHP route you took required you to do was like get in the weeds of the runtime and actually build up a VM instance, when in reality you just wanted to call your Zig code.
Exactly.
So Xtism helps a lot there, because we have a simple interface that just says create a plugin using a WASM module, and you can load that WASM off disk, from the network, anywhere. And then we expose an interface that just said call. So the first function is call with one input, two inputs, the function name you want to call and the data you want to pass it. And then you just get data back. So this kind of provides this like higher level, simple interface to just get you started and help you work with WASM. To compare that with the Elixir method, so now we're on method 2, that is similar to the runtime approach. It's still a little bit low level, but they've made it kind of idiomatic to Elixir. So it's a little bit nicer of an API, although it is still a little bit low level. And so one of the things about Xtism is that we also do have an Elixir SDK where you can run that WASM code in Elixir, but it keeps this consistent interface across every single SDK. So if you were writing a PHP application and you want to load an Xtism plugin, some WASM code, you would have an exact same interface to that PHP app in Elixir. So it's just plugin, call, function name, data, and you get your data out. So it's really, really portable across these different environments. And then the browser, your third track, is exactly the same too. We have the same JavaScript SDK interface as PHP and Elixir, and 13 other languages, by the way. So Xtism is really about how do we present a simple, fairly high level, obvious interface for just loading WASM, calling its functions, passing data in and getting data out, along with some additional kind of security controls that make it easier to not accidentally give your WASM environment more capabilities than you intend to.
Okay. All right. So what is running under the hood that makes Xtism plug and play with all these different languages?
So in the world of the WebAssembly ecosystem, there are a few notable runtimes, and there are trade-offs between all of them. And so the most well-known ones are WASMer, WASMtime, WASM3, WAS0, and then all of the runtimes inside the browsers, inside of the V8 engine or JavaScript core, et cetera. And ideally, you get to use one of the runtimes as a library in your project that is written in the same language as your project, because then you don't have to use FFI bindings and talk over to like a native executable or a native shared library from your language. And that's a problem for languages like Go, for example. If you don't have a runtime written in Go, you have to use CGO, and nobody really likes to do that. The same is true also for Elixir. You're binding to a native library. And so one of the things that XDism does is that because it has this uniform interface, it's ABIs, application binary interface, we can actually implement that same ABI on a bunch of different runtimes and just pick the best one for you depending on what language environment you're in. So if you have a Rust application, we're going to bring XDism in, and it's going to have WASMtime as its primary backend WASM engine that it brings along with it. If you're in Go, we're going to bring WAS0 for you because it's a native Go library. You don't have any linking to any external dependencies. If you're in any of the JavaScript environments, whether that be Node, Bun, Dino, any of the browsers, our JS SDK is going to use whichever WebAssembly runtime is already there, which is really convenient. And then for anywhere else, we've just already done the hard work of packaging up that shared library and writing idiomatic FFI wrappers so that you don't feel like you're dipping down into like a C extension from Python. You just have a nice Python API to talk to XDism. Does that make sense?
It does. All right. So then here's my follow-up question. One of the primary reasons why I'm using WebAssembly is because of performance. Because it's like it's low level enough, like in terms of, it's basically assembly under the hood. So if you do it right, you're going to get really good performance out of the gates. Then, like say writing the equivalent code in the language that you're binding your WebAssembly to, if that makes sense. What you've described sounds like at least 2, if not more, different chains connected together to make that compatibility work, depending on how you're plugging it in. What impact does that have on WebAssembly performance, if any, versus the way I'm doing it, which is just straight C code right out to WebAssembly and then porting it in myself, doing the work myself?
So it depends on the code. And it depends mostly on the amount of data that you are kind of copying into the WebAssembly environment. So independent of how you manage your setup, right? Whether you're, how much you've written in JavaScript and how much you're loading in WebAssembly, every byte that crosses that boundary has to be copied from the host environment in JavaScript or wherever into WebAssembly, because WebAssembly has this, secure virtual machine model that it has isolated sandbox memory from the host environment. So what I'm getting at here is I'm assuming you do have some kind of allocation function from JavaScript if you want to give some string data into Zig, or vice versa, allocate some memory from Zig in the host and give Zig access to it. There's copying going on. You can get extremely precise and very, very granular with those copies and how you want to manage memory. And that's going to be possibly more performant than the approach we've had to take to make this very generic, higher level interface. But it's most likely negligible because you can have to do the copy anyways. We're just managing the memory for you. So you don't have to manually allocate, copy, load from WASM, and then in the reverse, allocate, copy, and then load from the host. That's just taken care of for you in XDism. So you sacrifice that control for a ton of convenience, but the performance impact is actually very minimal. And it's actually only really noticeable when you are copying tons and tons of data, but you're going to have to copy that data anyways in kind of a more hand-rolled scenario. So we just tend to find that people end up copying a lot of data because we make it really easy when it's possible for them, it's hidden kind of behind the scenes that you're actually copying. So people don't like think about it quite as much as they may if they were handwriting their own allocations and copies. But for the most part, there really isn't a huge performance degradation unless you're in a situation where it's like, so let's actually back up, right? Because WebAssembly only supports natively i32s, i64s, float 64s, and float 32s. Yeah. And so like, if you have an interface where you can just pass like two float 64s as your input to your function, that is going to be more performant than like converting those two float 64s into a slice of bytes and then passing that slice of bytes into XDism. Everything is bytes in, bytes out in XDism. So if you do have just like a few ints, that's going to be faster than casting and converting into bytes. Right. But unless you're writing it in like a crazy tight loop, you're probably not going to know the difference.
Okay. So then the key important question, let's say you're someone like me who is like a stickler for not taking the easy way out. If something is non-performant, I want to go deep and I want to figure out what the heck is going on and I want to fix it. Can I do that with XDism? So if I find that I am shipping a lot of data, I've already done everything I can to make that data as small as possible, whatever the case might be. I've done my due diligence, but for some reason, because of the way XDism binds these chains together, so to speak, it's not as performant as if I had hand rolled it. And I want to get down into the weeds and I want to fix it. Can I do that? And if I can, how?
So there are some escape hatches. There are ways to get around copying data. It's likely that you actually don't need all the data that you pass in. So say, for example, you have like a map struct and it has all your game assets listed, the references to those assets as URLs, some boundaries, and maybe some coordinates and all kinds of information. But all you're really doing is like detecting if your current user in the game is within some boundary of coordinates. Right. And instead of copying the map struct into the plugin or to the WASM, you might just say like, you know what, I could actually just like, if I could call out to the host from the plugin and say, hey, here are my coordinates. Am I currently within the boundary? XDism has a feature called host functions, which let you actually bind imports from the host environment into the plugin. And so instead of copying host data into the plugin, you can actually just ask the host based on a smaller amount of data, is this condition true using a host function? So you'd pass your plugin, game state out to the host, and then the host can actually make a decision and return a value back to the plugin. So you kind of are inverting the calling direction. So instead of the host calling the WASM code is actually calling the host for some additional functionality. So there's definitely ways to get creative with it. Right now, you can't change our allocator. So we do have kind of an inbuilt, but it is extremely, performant tuned allocator. And I think the only time you're really going to be able to find a performance difference is if you're just like, I'm only passing in ints or floats as my function arguments. Outside of that, it's almost going to be, apples to apples in terms of the performance you're going to find.
Okay. So let's narrow it down. That was a good general statement. Let's narrow it down to what I'm doing. So in the browser, I hate how convoluted it is to do bidirectional communication with WASM and JavaScript. So for example, when you have to do strings, exactly what you described, you have to allocate memory in WebAssembly first through JavaScript. Then you have to convert your strings to some kind of int, usually so that it ends up as a const U8 in the Zig format or whatever the equivalent C format would be, so that the WebAssembly can run it. So you put it
Mm-hmm.
into the allocated memory. Then WebAssembly has to do something with that string, and sometimes the WebAssembly has to allocate new memory so that it can return a new string back, which is different from the original input string. I hate that whole thing. So what I've
Yep.
decided with my game state manager is that it's literally just numbers. You pass in numbers, you receive numbers. And it's up to the rendering mechanism, whether it's JavaScript or Qt or OpenGL or the terminal or whatever the heck ever. It will convert those numbers into whatever it thinks is appropriate string or an image asset or whatever it is. All it cares about, all WebAssembly cares about is, given the right input numbers, can I give you the right output numbers so that you can continue going on with the game state? So if we narrow it down to that context, how well does that fit in terms of extism and also in terms of performance?
So converting like a I32 into a byte representation is extremely fast, and calling the function is going to exceed the data transfer or copy, by an order of magnitude anyway. So you're going to spend much more time in the function that you're implementing in WASM, regardless of like the handing off a string or an int
Right.
from the guest and the host.
Right.
So like if you wanted to reuse that exact same implementation, I don't think you would notice any difference at all. You would just have to change some of your code on the host to say, okay, instead of getting an int, I'm actually going to get, like a slice of actual byte, and then I'm going to actually convert that into an int. And then on the WASM side, instead of returning an int, you still would write to extism's output a byte that is converted from your int that maps to the asset. Not super crazy amount of code, but definitely you have kind of solved for the limitations of WASM, like the vanilla WASM,
Right.
in a very smart way. And
Thank you. Yeah,
most, I think most people wouldn't have gone to those lengths to do that. But I wanted to highlight something really quickly that might kind of, you should absolutely exercise kind of one of the strengths of extism, like literally just to address that pain point that you talked about. I sent you a link in the Discord.
Let me pull that up.
Actually, I'll send it to the chat too, because they can follow along. This is a product that we built called Mod Surfer. And Mod Surfer is like a static analysis tool for WASM code. And so you basically get to upload a module to Mod Surfer, and it unpacks that WASM for you into like all of the things that are inside the WASM. Its imports, its exports, the signatures, the namespaces the host functions are imported from. We host the WASM for you, and it's all nice and pushed up to a CDN, so it's super fast if you want to load it. But we also generate the extism code that would be needed to run that module. And if you don't use extism, it's still going to generate some code for you. But if you want to, yeah, you could absolutely load your.
Oh, I'm doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna. Nope, sorry, not that.
You got to download it and then you have to re-upload it.
Yeah.
We should import from URL though.
Oh, I'm totally. I didn't. Oh, hang on.
You can either click the Mod Server logo or create a new module.
Okay, that's what I need.
If you want to upload yours.
Yeah, I want to upload mine. So yeah, so this. Holy crap. Holy crap. What? What?
Yeah, that's your WASM for you.
Like, I mean, it's simple. Like, I know you can do this already, like, because I've done the low level stuff, like with PHP.
Yep.
With the JavaScript stuff, like I know you can generate a list of functions and their inputs and outputs. And actually in Zig, I'm doing an automated process. Every time I build the WebAssembly file, it exports like enums and the functions and their inputs and outputs into like what I call bindings for JavaScript, so that all I have to do is just load that in, and I have everything I need for JavaScript to not have to even convert strings and to know exactly where to look for things. All that stuff is done. But like to have but that's different than having it show up here with alongside your WebAssembly one-to-one. That's a different thing. So this is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We find this is a really helpful tool. We use it all the time for just debugging. Like if I can't call an export with the signature I think it has, I'll load it into ModSurfer, see that, oh, you know what, this was either documented poorly or there was some kind of translation by the compiler that changed those exports. And this is actually what the exports are based on the WASM that it exports from the function section. And you also click through and saw like the WAT, so we'll just extract all that and convert it. We also provide this utility called the check file. And the check file is basically like, hey, I want to apply some constraints to what this WASM should have, and I want it to meet these expectations before I load it into my application or like push it up to some asset server. And so ModSurfer is also a CLI that you can validate against that check file and say, well, actually, this WASM has 500 other exports that you might not want available to the application to run at runtime, or it's missing this import, so therefore it's not going to initialize when you try to new it up inside of your browser app, and that's going to fail. But the point I wanted to show you was back on that Go-based WASM module, you could actually copy that XDism code and run it inside your console, and I'll make one minor change to the data. But it's just really cool to see, like, you didn't have to do any allocations or memory management. You just get to like load the WASM, run the function, and get the data out. So just if you don't mind, going back to that Go one, and then using a URL that I'll send you as the input, just to kind of show what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'll wait for you to ship me the URL. This is cool.
Okay. Okay, so if you click back, here, I'll just pass this into the main chat.
Sure.
So if anybody else wants to, if you just click the other ModSurfer link I sent, go back to the Go WASM.
The Go WASM. I'm lost.
Yeah. Click the original link to ModSurfer that I sent. That was directly to a module.
Oh, okay.
That you could see was written in Go.
Got it. Okay, so here we go.
This is still your module.
Right. Here we go. Yeah.
Perfect. So the code that it generates in the right-hand box at the top is like working functional code. And we know all this about the module because we can detect that it's an XDism module, meaning it has the imports for an XDism module. And we can then generate a kind of useful snippet here. So if you just copy that and open up your console, you can call this code in your browser. And then instead of passing that input, use the input I sent in the chat, which is like a weird formatted URL.
So it'd be this.
It's in the Twitch chat. Yeah, I don't know if you're...
Okay, hang on. It's this. Right?
Yeah, instead of that string. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And so what you're going to see here is actually like the WASM code unpacks that URL and converts it into a little nice JSON. And that code is written in Go. And we've just like compiled it to WASM and run it in XDism in your browser and loaded this arbitrary dependency and called its parse method, passing it some data, and it gives you back the JSON. So like you didn't have to do anything about allocation. You have to do anything about memory management. You have to do any kind of offsets or length or even anything about linear memory in WASM. So this is like the initial like draw to, can we make that easier using a framework that lets us do this across languages and ignoring all of the like lower level bits.
Okay, so, okay. Does that mean that I have to give up on my Zig code?
No. What you would do in your Zig code is instead of taking in actual function arguments, like here is that int that is mapped to the string in my host, and then literally returning another int to map to a different asset, XDism provides these libraries in all of our PDK languages. These are plugin development kit languages. And in fact, if you also don't mind, it's easier to look at an example. If you bring up the xdism.org site, there's a whole quick start section. And our Zig PDK has an example that will highlight exactly the kind of changes you would need. And I'll also talk to the reasons why you might consider making these changes if you did want to provide a portable game outside of the browser into other environments, possibly more easily.
Right. Okay, so there's the build.
So, yeah, exactly. So this is just the build, and the build, we can talk about that if you want, but yeah, the interesting stuff is actually here. So XDism functions, these turn into WASM exports, but XDism functions take no arguments as input. Instead, you'll notice in like the second line, there's a plugin.getInput function. That does the, hey, allocate me some memory based on the size of the input passed from the host, like you saw that URL in the other example in ModSurfer.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just returns back some bytes. And so name is actually a pointer into that linear memory. And then you can use name however you like. And then when you get to return some data back to the host, you actually call its output function. So that you set the output for the host to then pick off from linear memory and shuttle over to JavaScript or PHP or Elixir. And then you just return an error code. So XDism has no function arguments as input and one simple kind of error code output. You can also set error messages too, but this is just a kind of bare bones example.
Right. Okay. Can the input be anything? A string or even just like a number?
It has to be bytes. So this in Zig, it would be a const U8.
Okay. So
Right.
I couldn't pass in numbers as raw numbers from like whatever JavaScript or whatever.
You can, as long as they fit in a single U8. So, you could have a list of bytes, which each number could be 0 through 255. And if you can manage all of the possibilities within those numbers, then you can just use those literal numbers as the uint 8 value.
Right.
But anything above that, you would definitely cast to a string or a JSON slice or something like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that no matter what, XDism operates on bytes as input and bytes as output. You just can decide to either use those bytes as numbers or convert them to like a UTF-8 string or JSON or something like that.
Right. Okay. So if I use the XDism library on the JS side and I call a function on the JS side and pass it numbers, can XDism convert that under the hood for me?
Yeah, the JS SDK expects a array buffer thing. So when you pass in a string, it says, yeah, this qualifies. I can treat this as a string. You can also pass in a literal JavaScript array of bytes, and that will just work. So if you're used to sending in 242 as your int,
yeah,
you would just put that in an array and do array 242. You might even be able to pass a number out. I'm not sure. I should check with our team on literally passing in these primitive values.
Yeah.
But in the worst case scenario, you could just pass an array of that one integer value.
Okay.
Again, it's limited in size to only up to 255 for a U8.
Okay. So if I wanted to send something bigger, I would have to send possibly multiple values, and probably on the WebAssembly side, like in my Zig function, I would have to deal with multiple sets, sum them up essentially to get to the bigger number that I'm trying to get to. Something along those lines.
Something along those lines. That's honestly more complicated than just converting the int to a string and then passing the string. And I know that from a performance standpoint, this is basically the worst thing you could do. But if it's just one value and you're not running it a million times a second, it's probably not going to make a significant difference.
Okay.
I would love to know if you try it and find otherwise, though.
Okay. Because that is something I'm doing when I render the state of the game, and I'm doing 30 frames, 60 frames per second, whatever it is. That
Mhm.
means that every time I do it, I have to call at least several spots on a grid, a two-dimensional grid, matrix, and say what's at this location, what's at this location, what's at this location, and those are XY coordinates going in, and then a particular number coming back telling me whether there's an entity there or an asset or something like that. And I do that
I
a
see.
lot every second.
Yeah.
So to convert that to a string starts to get a little iffy for me now, right?
Totally, totally. Let me send another link too, which is kind of a performance analysis on doing exactly this. And it talked about both the speed on a per function call basis using byte data, as well as the speed of transmitting that data across the boundary and kind of what our throughput is. Um, Lost the chat. Where are we here? Here we go. And I'm going to share this with everybody. Uh, and so you could take a quick look and see like, all right, I'm only shipping what ultimately becomes like a few bytes, and the average like function call with that level of data runs in like nanoseconds.
Okay.
So then it's just dependent on what the amount of work you're doing inside your non-exism code. Um,
Okay.
but it's pretty fast. I mean, WebAssembly is very, very fast, and these copies are like they're expensive, but they're in the grand scheme of things, not that expensive. So it's really just about like if I'm really not copying that much data, there's really not a lot of time spent in that part of the operation. Um,
Okay.
but it depends. It really depends on the use case. I would say, in a game loop, that's one of the, less experimented with and potentially less likely to be applicable for what Xism is really good for. Um, but it's still really fast. So I would say it's worth trying. I
Okay.
mean, Xism was predominantly designed to be like a plugin system. So if I want to run arbitrary third-party code in process and load something from my customer or user that changes the behavior of my application, Xism's great because it doesn't matter what language the host is written in. I can write the plugin in any language. And if my application needs to be rewritten from like Ruby to Rust, I can reuse all those same customer plugins. They don't have to be rewritten to match my new environment they're running in.
Right.
So like that's kind of the key use case that we designed Xism for, but people are using it for all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see the benefit because um I'm having to write the bindings to whatever language I want my WebAssembly file to run in
yeah,
manually,
exactly.
essentially manually.
Exactly.
Um,
Yep.
but if you've watched my stream for any more than 5 minutes,
Yep.
I am not satisfied with it works well enough. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. So this leads into like the future of like where you want to take Xdism. I would personally, I would want to see the ability for me to get into the weeds and have more fine-grained control if I so choose. And I want to see the ability for me to be able to pass primitive values because that's what I depend upon for maximum efficiency, right? So
For sure.
where do you want to take Xdism? Are those things on the roadmap at all? Maybe they are after this call. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, the roadmap into the future is extremely open ended. We have a lot of great input on our Discord. Xism has a vibrant Discord community where folks are making requests and talking about their use cases, and we're always happy to try to optimize things for particular use cases. Um, Operating on individual primitives, it could just already work. And forgive me for not knowing this offhand. You might in the JS SDK just be able to pass a number, and we're not going to do anything to that number. It's just going to materialize as an int on the way up.
Okay.
But the general case for people who are either new to WebAssembly or like finally just trying it because they need some portability with their code is that once you get past the add example, like on the MDN docs, it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Yep.
I don't want to write an allocator. I don't want to manage memory. And so that's one of the problems we set out to solve. In the future, so we are also working on like a commercial product to make XDism management much more streamlined. So like, how do you test these plugins from your users? How do you upload and store them? How do you retrieve them optimally? How do you simulate an environment that my host has that I want to actually run these in kind of like an integration style CI/CD thing? Part of that is also providing bindings and code gen to make it easier to take, my customer's code, give them a framework that they can kind of build into. So if I expect to be able to call a on event happened function, that takes in a JSON payload that looks like this and returns a JSON payload that looks like that, we can generate all that stuff for you. So code generation and creating bindings and stuff is definitely on the near-term roadmap. We're not sure if that is going to be made open source like XDism or kind of kept as a commercial feature for the platform. But I think it could be fairly easy to extract. So we'll definitely give it a shot. But I would love to better support like primitive values as inputs and outputs. And even if that means just like creating a new function that's not plugin call, it's just like function call,
Right.
and it lets you dip down to whatever value you want to send. Maybe that's the way we go.
Right. So here's what I'm thinking is like it's fine for me to say that about the video game, but if I wanted to use this on an embedded device, there are some serious limitations, right? And
Oh yeah,
Zig to WebAssembly is in my opinion, it's a great use case for an embedded device where you
definitely.
create one type of binary file and you can run it on an embedded device, but the amount of inputs and outputs that you can pass back and forth in an embedded device might be seriously limited, and I
Yeah.
want to work with that. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
that would be a use case where I would probably go down to primitive values because I would need to, out of necessity.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, in the embedded space, there's another layer of complexity where most of the runtimes that you want the like level of performance that they can provide, so like WASM time or WASMer, they all generate native code. So they take your WASM binary in, and then they have a backend pass that generates ARM64
Right.
or AMD x86 instructions. Well, most embedded devices aren't ARM64 and they're not x86. You might be like ARM7 or a
Right.
32-bit architecture. So you can't use those like high powered runtimes. You got to use something like an interpreter, like WASM3 or WAMR from
Yep.
Intel. These are kind of your options if you want to run like small devices with architectures that they support. And so like one of the things that we're looking into is building a XDism backend on WAMR so that you can actually run it in like a interpreted mode on a small device, and it's not going to try to generate instructions that the device can't execute. And so if we do that, I think there will be even a stronger pull to not have to pass in a slice of bytes as the input, but instead provide a more performant kind of lower level primitive value as input and output.
Right.
So maybe there's a coupling there in some of that work and feature requests.
Right. See, here's kind of like my brief view on what you just described. I think it's been a long time since like the back end world and the front end world and the embedded low level device world. Like it's been a long time since these worlds have had crossover. I think what's happened in the industry in general is that a lot of people have kind of like dispersed into different corners and they have their own things. I could be wrong, but I think WebAssembly files have been the first thing that's come out in recent memory where those worlds can be like bridged. There's no there
Yeah.
you can remove those gaps. And if you know how to create a WebAssembly file in your world, everybody else can use your WebAssembly file in their world too. It's been a
Yes.
long time since that's happened. I think the last time that
Yes.
happened is probably like the assembly/C days, where that was probably
C,
the
yeah.
closest thing, right? I still
Yep.
remember writing assembly for embedded hardware on digital receiver boxes when I was a kid, when digital TV was first coming out, and for satellite TVs, and that was all assembly code, right? Now, and you'd take that
Awesome.
assembly code and run it everywhere. So I think there's a huge potential for WebAssembly here, and what you're doing is making it super easy for everyone to bridge those gaps because they don't necessarily have to know the inner workings if they don't want to.
Right.
But
Yep.
to be fair, you might want to consider that there are going to be aspects of these people, groups of these people who really do know what they're doing. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
somebody in
Absolutely.
C or Zig is writing WebAssembly code, they probably know how to allocate some memory and they probably know how to pass in primitive values in that, right? So
For
if your
sure.
tool is going to bridge those gaps like kind of like holistically, you want to empower them to be able to do that, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
just
Oh
something
yeah.
to think about long term because like for me, that's what I want to do. I think as is, I'm going to try it. And if it gets me, most of the way there, if maybe even all the way there, honestly, I'm on board. But I can
Awesome.
see scenarios like with embedded devices, for example, where it's like, crap, what am I going to do now? And it sounds
Definitely.
like you don't have that escape hatch there yet, that very specific escape hatch.
Not yet. We're trying to solve the biggest pain point for the vast majority of
Right,
users first,
right.
and then we can kind of whittle down into the nitty
Yes,
gritty of these more narrow use cases.
yes,
But it's certainly something we want because look, the goal of the company and the goal of Xtism is to make all software programmable, and by programmable I mean like extensible and customizable.
right,
And so like yeah, we want every user, whether they're super experienced or fairly new, to be able to use this in the way that they want. But the goal is to have this kind of unified ABI that we know is portable across all those places.
right.
And I'll leave you with one more thing here because I do have to go in just a few minutes.
Yep,
Is that WASM is still not entirely there where I can write it once and run it anywhere. Like you mentioned, I can compile that Zig code to WASM, and then as long as I just have a runtime that can take that WASM and execute it, it's going to run deterministically the exact same way in JavaScript, in Zig, in C, in Ruby, and elsewhere.
right,
And the problem is that whenever you have a spec that's just maintained by a group, it's up to the implementer to interpret that spec. And sometimes these interpreters or the people who are implementing don't interpret the spec precisely the same as
right.
every other implementer. And there are rough edges. So for example, like if you compile some Go code to the WASI superset, the additional capabilities into WASM, there are constructors and destructors in that Go code that create the Go runtime, the scheduler and the Go routine manager, the garbage collector.
I
And
see.
it's not consistent in all the runtimes when you call the WASI start entry point that all those constructors are called. And
Right,
so if the implementation of the runtime doesn't know to also look for other various indications inside the WASM code, the Go runtime is not going to start, and then your code's not actually going to run.
right.
So that's another thing that Xism does, is that we have identified all these places in all the PDK languages we support, the plugin languages that target WASM. They will run consistently, correctly across every environment that Xism is embedded into. And that also is a huge pain point for people who are like, yeah, I thought I could run my Rust code in my Ruby app and in my Go app and in my front end on JavaScript, but it actually doesn't just work out that way.
Yeah,
So Xism is trying to say, like, if you just buy into Xism, it's going to work in all those places because that's our primary motivator.
right. And I think that's a key pull for me because if I want somebody to take my WebAssembly, like game engine, game state manager, and build a different front end rendering mechanism, they can use
Yep,
Xvism to choose whatever language, basically whatever language is supported for them to do it in, and they can count on it being consistent. Whereas right now they'd have to do all the importing and outputting and all of that by themselves. So that's a huge
exactly.
pull because then it opens the door for other people to use the stuff I'm building in WebAssembly in my Zig code, all of that together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well,
Well, let me know. I'll come back and we can even hack on your game together
sure,
and convert some of those functions into Xism and
sure.
load it around. And I'd love to help out. So Well, hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, it sounds good. Thanks for jumping on board. I wish I could take questions from chat, but I know you have to go, so I'll let you go. But thank you again,
I
Steve.
can stay for like 1 or 2 more minutes if folks do want to take. I know we have a couple already here. I see.
Yeah, see if you can pick
Like,
up.
how is this different? Oh yeah, great question. How is it different from WASM BindGen? So WASM BindGen is a tool to go from Rust to JavaScript, or to call JavaScript from Rust, but it's exclusive to those two languages. And WASM BindGen creates its own like managed heap to keep track of the JavaScript values in Rust and the Rust values as WASM in that heap. And so it's exclusively useful for interop between Rust and JavaScript. Xdism is useful for any language combination across our SDKs, which there are 16 languages we support, and our PDKs, which there are 9 languages that we support. So it's just a larger matrix of kind of combinations between languages that you can get kind of interoperability between.
Perfect. Perfect.
Looks like.
I don't know if anyone.
Oh yeah, when do you think WASM will have native access to browser APIs?
There you go.
There are proposals underway, and some of them I think, are even landed, like the external reference types. You could basically expose like the, window.alert or something like that as an external reference type, and then from WASM you could call it. You still would have to kind of like have a binding and know there's a function called alert in Zig or Rust as it compiles to WASM to call that function and have it kind of like, poke the window.alert function in JavaScript. There's a misconception that this is actually an expensive workaround to like go through JavaScript to call that alert function. That is a minuscule expense compared to copying data from JavaScript into WebAssembly. So if that's what's blocking you, forget about that limitation. If you go and look at like the performance metrics that like compare frameworks like Vue and Leptos, which are like Rust to web app frameworks, and contrast those with the metrics from like React or Vue, they're super close. In some cases, the like Leptos benchmarks beat out the pure JavaScript ones for some, micro benchmark comparisons,
Yeah.
but it's super close. So I wouldn't use that as a reason to shy away from writing your web apps in WASM and have them still talk to JavaScript. The Kotlin language has really nice bindings to all of JavaScript. There are a number of libraries in Rust and in Go that get you kind of DOM-like constructs as bindings in those languages. So yeah, I would say it may never happen where you get like actual true direct bindings to the DOM from the web browser into WASM, because that would basically mean like the C++ code that is actually the browser is written in, that the engine is written in, has to provide imports and hooks directly into the WASM runtime. And WASM was designed to be fully detached from the browser as an environment. So like you kind of don't want that coupling in any case, because that might make the WASM code not portable that you run in the browser and expect to go in and run it in a standalone runtime in Rust or JavaScript or PHP or wherever else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But yeah, I agree. I would like native browser APIs too,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, I'll have to. I know you have to go, but I'll have to talk to you about.
Yeah.
I'm doing some very specific memory management handling for my game, and I want to talk to you about like whether I would have to change that at all with Xdism, or maybe the answer is a quick no or not. But it's very specific memory management handling for certain things that I don't want to let go of because they're specific to me. So
totally. Maybe I'd bring on another person or two from the team too. I'm like the dumbest person on our team.
I know,
and
you
so
sounded pretty smart to me. So
I'll bring somebody who has a little more know-how if you want to get really deep into the weeds. But.
I kind of do.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
All right, man.
Okay, thanks again.
You might like take a look at some code just if you want. In Xdism, there's a crate called the Xdism kernel, which is all of our memory allocation and part of the ABI that actually gets compiled into WASM. it's really easy to make more of XDism portable. That's where a lot of the really interesting memory management code is that you might want to take a little peek at. But
Okay.
definitely would love to come back on and write some code and work on the game. So until next time.
That'd be fun. Okay, I'll let you go, Steve.
All right,
Thanks
man.
again for your time.
Thanks
I
for having me.
appreciate it. We'll see you
Of
later.
course, of course. See ya.
Bye. Okay. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. So, yeah, that was an awesome call. So there's error handling here. Yeah, there's a lot, man. They really thought this through. So this is one of those things where I'm asking a lot. Hey Jodem, nice to see you. Ninja, nice to see you. Yeah, let me know how you both are doing. I'm asking a lot from Steve, right? Steve and the XISM team, where I'm saying like, no, I want everything, right? And I'm not afraid to ask that because I force myself to do that on stream with a video game and the code that we're building. But there's a trade-off, right? So what you're actually seeing here is the real world practicality of I want everything versus we also need to tackle what we need to tackle in front of us. And their first goal is how do we make enough generalizations that a lot of people can use it in as effective a manner as is acceptable. And then they can drill down into specific areas that need to, be solved for. So I'm asking for those specifics right now. I realize I'm doing that. I think Steve knows that I'm asking for that, and he understands I don't really like, I'm not pushing for it like in a serious you must do this way, but more of like this is what I hope to see in the future, because they have a different focus right now, right? And that's how you're building the business. So there's a real world kind of like a view now into why decision makers make particular types of decisions at the business level and how that affects the type of work that you would probably do at the software programming level. And you have to negotiate ways to make that work. Steve seems like a cool guy. The team seems really smart, so I'm sure they're going to get to it. But it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to juggle all that. I think, based on what I know, they're going to get there. And if they have input from people like me and from you guys in chat and from their customers, they'll figure it out and they'll build the stuff. So I'm going to give this a shot. I am a little bit concerned. I told Steve up front, you guys saw that I have to change some things that I need to hold on to for my game. And I don't want to do that because they're specific to my game. They're very efficient for like what I'm trying to do with my game. So like I have the handler thing from Travis, where we create a system that registers specific types of data, and then you have handles that are attached to like an entity, for example, right? I don't want to give that up because I'm using XDism, but I'm going to try XDism out. I'm going to talk to Steve a bit more. I'm going to try it out because that was a really cool discussion. I think this is a really smart way to kind of broaden the scope of WebAssembly beyond what it is in its vanilla form. And I really want this to work. Like I'm really excited. I think this is probably, in my opinion, I think this is the future. WebAssembly is the future. You're going to be able to code a single binary in pretty much whatever language you want and know that it's going to run pretty much the same way on any other system. That's, to me, that's like the holy grail. I've been looking into it for some of my own stuff. Cool. It's awesome they take the time to discuss. Yeah, Steve was really, really cool about it. I've never even thought to talk to the builders of a project. Thank you for sharing. We can all break that barrier. Yeah, that's really cool that Steve got on here. And like, I'm a WASM influencer, so of course he's going to come on my channel, right? Because I'm the best WASM influencer there is, right? So stupid. League, yeah, I actually hate the coding discussions, but I love watching the game come alive. Well, there you go, League. I'm glad I can, I live to make your life miserable, League. So, mission accomplished. I can end the stream now. I've disappointed League. I'm happy. Yeah, I lost Marble. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well, Lost. Yeah, if you go jump on my YouTube, you can you can go back as far back as you want, or you can just wait for me to end the stream, and it'll be on the Twitch VODs. After that, a Bowser hat feels right. I don't know. I don't know if a Bowser hat feels right after that. I feel like a Yoshi hat. Yoshi hat would probably feel right. Um, yeah, no, that was pretty cool. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm gonna do a podcast with Fermion about Wazzy Wasm and Sig in about 2 weeks. Oh, Ninja, you're gonna have to drop a link in Discord when you have a time. When you have a time and stuff for that, I want to see that. That sounds really cool. I know Fermion is doing some cool stuff there too. Yeah, Ninja, please shill that on my Discord, please. At the very least, I want to know. Okay, let me put the music back on. I'll set a marker so I don't forget that we're done. Yeah, Joe Dim. You leave for 2 weeks, come back, and then we have 69 hats. Yeah. Okay, music. In terms of portability, it looks awesome. Performance-wise, I think you have to stick with your current code. That's what I'm worried about, Peg. That's exactly what I'm worried about. I'm worried that my trade-off is going to be portability versus performance. And I don't want to be converting code if I'm going to lose on that performance. I want all of it. So I think the worst case scenario would be somebody comes on from the Xism team, looks at what I'm doing, and goes, "Hey, you can't really get the exact same performance with our code." It's like, okay, that's fine, but I can talk to you about what I'm doing, and if you can build in a way for me to be able to do that, then I can continue with my code and know that hopefully in the near future I can do what I need to do with Xism, and then I get everything. Right? That's the worst case scenario, and honestly, that's not a bad place to be, right? And it benefits them as well. So you redeemed 2 hats, did you? Okay. I'll put on the Yoshi hat. Good to hear your voice again, Lawler. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Let me get my Yoshi hat, all right? Trace is back. Windows paths are the worst. They are the worst. Here you go, Matisse. Matisse, how are you doing? Let me get you a shout out here, Matisse. There's a shout out for Matisse because he's doing some cool stuff on his streams, and he's been a viewer and supporter for a long time. Where I'm grateful to be able to say Matisse is a part of my community, and I part of his. I watch his stuff sometimes, lurk in the background. It's a pretty cool guy. Pretty cool guy. Not as cool as me, but pretty cool. Sorry. This in particular. Now you have a bar to cross, yeah. This in particular, the mod surfer stuff, where you can analyze your WebAssembly code. That's awesome. That's really cool. This could come in handy. And the performance metrics, I mean, it does seem negligible, but I'm worried that it won't be negligible for what I'm doing. So I need to talk to Steve about that. Okay. music. At 60 FPS might be bad. That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried. And the other thing is, because it's doing its own, because XDism does its own memory allocation, like, honestly, if I had to not pass primitives around, that's probably not the worst thing. I think the worst thing would be I can't manage my own memory. That would be the worst thing. They come back to me and say, oh yeah, you know, your handling system, it won't work in XDism. We manage the memory for you. I'd be like, that might not be the case, but I have to talk to Steve about that and sort it out. But I mean, the potential here is huge, and I think they're basically just like right on the cusp of just breaking through the last few things they need, and then you can like literally just write portable WebAssembly code for whatever. And I have some use cases that I want to use for work as well. Like I've got two, well, I mean, yeah, two specific things that I want to try it out on. It's on its own memory allocation, but you're avoiding this with your functions, and XDism will do it no matter what. Right, Pag? Right. Okay, right. That's a good point. So I suppose what I'd have to be concerned about is I'm doing the memory allocation. Does my memory allocation run alongside XDism's? So then you'd have two memory allocations of different types to deal with inputs and outputs. And what is the cost of that? And right, I think that's what you're trying to hint at, which makes sense to me now that you've brought that up. Yeah, I have to figure that out. Yeah. No, that was cool though. That was super cool. Like, this is crazy. How good this is. So that means then what I could do. I'm trying to think, could I use my Zig WebAssembly code and just run this, or use XDism to run it in like the Elixir code and not have to do anything? I don't know. I have to kind of think about that. Question is it flexible enough to allow you to plug your own allocation? I think the answer is you can't do your own memory allocation for what XDism does, but you can have your own memory allocation alongside XDism's. And you can use XDism to do the portability aspect, where your inputs and outputs can be, you don't have to worry about like getting down to the weeds for each language or framework or whatever and figuring out how you get those inputs and outputs. And if that's the case, that might actually not be too bad for what I'm doing in its current state. But down the road, when I want other people to use this, I will want more control over that. Yeah, Ryan, Elixir D's nuts. Following question in my head is kind of disturbing. Why do I need XDism then? I mean, so no. Okay, so Pag, you still do need XDism. Let's say that XDism, not need, but it's useful. It's still useful because XDism will take away the requirement for you to figure out how to load the WebAssembly file into like Elixir or PHP or whatever, and have to get down into the weeds as to how you load up that file, how you call functions, how you translate inputs and outputs from PHP or Elixir or JavaScript or whatever it is, in order for them to be used and in WebAssembly, and then have the right data be returned back. There's a whole aspect of that that's kind of outside WebAssembly. It's like, how do you use WebAssembly? And XDism takes care of that for you in a consistent best path across all the different languages that they support. So I want to use XDism for that because I don't like how I've had to do a different way of loading up the WebAssembly module and calling it in PHP than I do in Elixir than I do in JavaScript. And that's all because it's not consistent across each one. Kinda, you peg, yeah. Yeah. I need to add to your Twitch app to redirect URLs. Oh, do I? Okay, let me do that. That's easy. Let me do that right now, Ryan. Add, save. Yeah, I just added it. It might take a minute. I don't know. It doesn't seem to... Like, I added it, but I don't think... Yeah, I did. See, it's a success. If I refresh the page, it should be there. There it is. I don't know. I think maybe there's probably a configuration value. Although that doesn't make sense either. I'm pretty sure that the client ID and secret are in the vars. I'm pretty sure. From what I recall, when we leaked all our secrets, remember when we leaked DNV and we spent like 7 hours? Remember that? I'm pretty sure client ID and secret are in there based on my memory. If I had to guess, I would say that there's some kind of... Dylan still talks. Damn it, Dylan. Told you to keep that secret. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably some like code or configuration value that's pointing to localhost, and it shouldn't be. Not sure. Not 100% sure. Okay. Let me check a couple of things here. Why am I getting this message here? There's an error message on my machine. I just gotta check it out real quick. Oh, I see. Okay, it's me being stupid. Okay. Okay, let me have a swig. You switched to LazyVim a few days ago. Once I disabled a bunch of things, it's pretty nice. LazyVim is in like... Wait. I can't remember. There's the lazy plugin loader, right? That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it's probably similar to what I have running with Tej's setup. It looks like there's some crossover there. You did Kickstart? Okay, yeah, Kickstart, that's right. AstroVim, which is a power set of LazyVim, but easier to configure. AstroVim. Yeah, did you screw things up so badly, Ryan? I kind of did the same thing. And I just got so frustrated with it, I gave up. Modular stability. So this is based on LazyVim? It's like import Astro community completion.copilot. Okay. I wonder what's here. Yeah, very similar to the way you bring in. I see. Okay. I remove notify and add like 2 plugins and it's done. I like LazyVim because it's not a super special config, unlike LunarVim, so it's still configured the same. I see. LunarVim has its own special config. I see. So I guess AstroVim would be kind of like LunarVim, where it's got a special config. That's kind of what it looks like. It's like a special config to get you going. Interesting. I might try one of these out. I'm reasonably happy with where I'm at. They remapped everything last week to make it more like Tej's Kickstart. I see. Like, I don't think I need to do anything with this for myself, but I could try it out when I have some time to destroy my NeoVim setup and just see how it plays. Cause why not? Cause why not? Hang on, I gotta take a drink here because my throat is hoarse. Ooh, man. I might go for another half hour and then call it. I was hoping to do a longer day, but my voice is dying. Which kind of sucks. But yeah. I wanted like another 4 hours at least. I don't think my voice is gonna hold out. I think I'm gonna lose it. So I might only do a half hour more. Damn. I really wanted to keep going. Okay. So, I'm gonna cross this off. Can I even do, I don't even know if I can. Can I just do this? There we go. Where's the 4 hours focus mode reward? Yeah, Jodem. I know. If I did that, everyone would redeem it. And then you'd never hear me talk and it'd be like the most boring stream. I can always switch to sign language. Thanks. Thanks, Adaraz. Also, Adaraz, how are you doing? It's been a long time. I hope you're doing well, Adaraz. Great, I guess. Hadaraz, I hope everything's okay, man. So I'm thinking in my head. There's some elixir stuff I wanted to do. Okay, hang on. I should. More WASM bindings. Engine. Scripting language, possibly. Bare minimum entity manager. I gotta finish the magic links for this Laravel HTMX project. And admin area to create content. Search. Okay, so these are some of the things I have planned. But because my voice won't last long enough to tackle any one of these, I might have to do it off screen. And since I did that, okay. If you want to talk to if you want to see what XDism is up to, and you want to talk to Steve, so just make sure that there's some links here. XDism.org, and then let me get pretty active on Twitter or X or whatever, so you can, that's the username on X. So if you want to like ask questions that you didn't get to ask, because I know we had to keep it to an hour because he didn't have the time, you can talk to him on X there. And I think on XDism they have a Discord channel somewhere. I don't know where I have my tab. I just want to make sure I get the links out. There we go, Discord. Yeah, so it's right on the website, so I don't need to do the links. I did use their playground. This is pretty cool. You can literally load up a WebAssembly file on here and play around with it. Unfortunately, because I've done the special console logging, it won't run. So it kind of sucks that way, but if you do have something you want to play around with, it's really cool to see like what happens when you input some stuff into the WebAssembly file and what it gives you back out. I'll have to play around with this too. Anyway, okay, so that's all the XDism WebAssembly stuff. That was really cool. What else did I have on my agenda? I think that was pretty much it. I've got my code. Oh yeah, I need to pull in the Elixir code so that when I actually do run it, have it, because I don't have it on this machine, because I did some stuff. So I know that Ryan fixed some stuff a while ago. Yeah, but I'll clone this first. Excuse me? What the? That was weird. Did Ryan rename himself? He did. He likes to do that. Ryan likes to throw people off. Yeah, so in here we had the client stuff. If I go look at it off screen, so as not. This is your original Twitch name? You instantly regretted switching back? I mean, what kind of a name is Shy Ryan? Ryan. Oh really? You're stuck with it for 2 months? Legit? That Twitch makes you do that? That's crazy. Yeah. And then I think it was... Yeah, okay, so let me check the NV in here. So we've got app client ID, app client secret, an OAuth token, a regular client ID, and a regular access token. So, I mean, as far as I can tell, there's no local host. Oh no. No. Don't do this to me again, Neovim. What the hell? I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I don't know if it's because WSL, because it's been working fine up until something changed like in the last week. And on my other WSL, does it work? Does it work here? Let me check my other machine. It works fine on my other machine. And it's exactly the same configs. What the hell? Yep. Doesn't matter the project. Well, let me try. I don't... Here, let me try. Yeah, as soon as I do an update. As soon as I do an update on the other machine, Telescope fails too. So it's I don't think it's WSL, I think it's Telescope. There's something in the recent update. I think I'm done with NeoVim, honestly. I think I'm done with it. I've never had this many problems on... The only one that comes close is VS Code. On VS Code, I've had problems like this, where like some package breaks because it's stupid, and VS Code breaks. But the only thing that's been consistently running like no problem is Sublime. Yes, Shreyas, you can say something. I'm currently very upset, but it's easy to tell in VS Code what broke your stuff, at least. That is true, Ryan. That is true. Yeah, it's a skill issue. Yeah. Shreyas, okay, Shreyas, to be fair, it's a skill issue. And you know what? I'm going to defend myself a little bit. I'm sure, I'm 100% positive that if I go and try and figure out what's causing the issue, I could figure it out. So it's not really a skill issue. What I'm frustrated with is that I even have to do it in the first place. That's the frustration. I never have to go check anything on Sublime because it never fails. I don't want to be checking why the hell my NeoVim config breaks every 2 weeks. And I'm sick of it. I have better things to do with my life, especially at the ripe old age of 40. I do not want to be using my skills to go figure out what's wrong with my editor before I can even code the actual code. I don't get paid to figure out my my editor configurations. I get paid to code. Yeah, you know what it took to learn to set up WSL? It took 3 button clicks. That's it. So Ryan, you can see we actually have localhost hard coded into the code on, well, here, the endpoint. Maybe this makes it, maybe this is why? Just throwing it out there, because I just did a hard search. That's what I was trying to do with NeoVim, use Telescope. But maybe this is why it's doing what it's doing. Possibly, potentially, maybe. Just a thought. Search for URL, okay. I'm stupid sometimes. I genuinely am. Okay, so there's the runtime, which is host, and then there's that. At least get a language highlighting extension for Elixir. You're right, Trace. When you're right, Trace, you're right. There we go. Runtime.exs. Let me check that. Adaraz, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I feel much better. I was sick for several days. My kid was sick for several days. I had a bunch of work emergencies, so it took me out for like 2 weeks overall. I feel like 100%, except for congestion up in the face, which is why my voice is dying. So it might not last much longer, but yeah. What is host variable set to? It's phx host. And then on the if I go look at the environment file, so in the server that it's running on, phx host is set to spiridon.games in production, so that should be fine. Oh, Adaraz, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I hope you get over it soon. This one's just hanging on. So my question is this here. This is I don't unless I'm misunderstanding how this works. I don't see how this is being overridden. Oh, in the config setup. Right. You're typing it as I'm realizing it. Okay. So even though the config is initially set to localhost, it does a load, like a loading of the application, and then it sets host. Okay. Well, then that's the only place where I see localhost in like hard coded. So why is it redirecting to localhost? I don't exactly know, unless I've got something set up in the configuration of my application. Let me just check here. Okay, bye Shreyas. See you in 5 minutes. Website, application, analytics. Yeah, I don't see anything in here that would be like, that would tell the application to go to localhost. That's really odd. That's very odd. Receiving the result of client with either an access token or a failure. This exactly redirect URI. I mean, what do we have for redirect URI? Maybe we're not setting a value. Look in the URL, yeah. Yeah, it's a good call out there. Okay, so if I go here, Okay, so the redirect URI is that. That looks right. Off Twitch callback. Oh no, did I have a space at the end? Could it be that simple? Did I actually have an invisible space at the end? Could you imagine? You're about to leave. Twitch has no control over the content or security of localhost. But this is localhost. Like, even this tells... What the heck? It was a space. It was an invisible space. It was an invisible space. I copied and pasted it wrong. Listen, I'm an Omega GigaChad developer, okay? I don't make mistakes like this. Ryan, you sent me the link wrong. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. There we go. It's working. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for helping me through that. I appreciate it, man. Okay, that's great. So we've got authentication working again. So if I do some Elixir stuff later or tomorrow when my voice is back, I can work on some of that. That's great. That's so stupid though. God, sometimes I'm so stupid. Why do their forms not trim user input? I don't know, Lost. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's Twitch. It's Twitch's problem. It's not my problem. It's Twitch's problem. They should be trimming. Why aren't they trimming? Why did they let me put invisible spaces in? That's stupid. Dumb. Maybe you want a space on your redirect URL. Maybe you do. Skill issue. I'm going to pull a Shreyas here and call out skill issue. Okay, my voice is really dying. I'll spend like 10-ish more minutes. I'll chat with you guys and then I'm going to go do something about my voice. Spin around games. Foo space, yeah. Foo space. I wonder if you could route on that. Ooh. Oh, with Elixir? I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can with Elixir. Secret paths. Yeah. Yeah, I like it. That'd be dope. That'd be dope. I'm not running a server, I don't think, so I don't think I can actually connect, but yeah. Okay. So what I could do yeah, I have to run it separately. That's okay. I can set up a server and later keep it running. Space 20 admin, space admin space, yeah. Yeah, I like it. Do I have my grayscaled color theme on here? Oof. No. What was it? I'm done. I'm officially done with NeoVim. It's over. NeoVim and I are done. There we go. And then I have to change some of the stuff, which I can pull off of my other machine here. Yep. Yeah. Sublime is my new best friend, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make an announcement. On X. Wait, okay, hang on. What do you got here? Yeah, there we go. Okay, this. How? Hang on, hang on, hang on. It's gotta be like all the way over here, right? Like that. And then oh, I see, I see. I see what you're saying. Here, let me just do it again. So if I just went like NeoVim and then Sublime. Sure. So then all I have to do is that, I hope. Can I just like embed the picture? I should just embed the picture. There we go. Done. That's it. I'm done with NeoVim. It's official. It's official. I'm done with NeoVim. Okay. I'm really sorry to have to do this. But my voice is basically gone. I can tell. I'm not going to last another 5 minutes. I'm going to find someone to raid and I will be back tomorrow. And hopefully my voice will last longer. I'll do my best. But it's dying fast, so I better get the heck out of here. So let me find someone to raid. Thanks again to Steve for a great interview. That was really cool with the Extism Wasm stuff. And thank you, chat, for being here and having a bit of fun with me today and putting up with my voice, because it sucks. Yeah. You know what? Let's raid Chris. Let's raid Chris. It's been a while. I haven't raided Chris in a long time. We're gonna raid Chris. We're gonna go over to Beanie Land. I'll see all of you tomorrow. Again, I appreciate everyone being here. If you want to chat, I'll be active on Discord for the rest of the day. I'll just be working silently to give my voice a rest. So if anybody wants to talk to me about anything, hit me up on Discord. Otherwise, I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day or night or whatever it is you're having. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for making it fun for me to do this. I hope we all had fun today. Okay, so enjoy your time. We'll see you later. Thanks, everyone.